Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. It is Tuesday, the 10th of June, and we've got a large low moving in from the Tasman Sea. Let's have a look and see all the lightning this morning. As that low spins around out in the Tasman Sea, there is certainly hundreds of thunderstorms at the moment. Now, as they move in towards land, you might notice they kind of fall apart. That is quite normal as it starts to interact with the land, and also keep in mind the low pressure zone is still stuck out here well to the west. But we are going to be seeing some rain moving down the North Island, and as you can see, there might be some thunderstorms associated with that as we go through later today, tonight. And then over the days ahead, we've got more isolated thunderstorms with the centre of the low itself. And while the low is weakening, we've got some of those downpours on the way. Certainly some instability. Look at the high pressure belt though. High pressure northeast of New Zealand, east of us, and to the south. That's the reason why over the next week, Fiordland, Southland, Otago, parts of Canterbury will be the driest in the country. Heaviest downpours likely to be coming in around Taranaki, maybe parts of Coromandel Peninsula, and then hit and miss downpours with maybe thunder coming through for places like Northland, Auckland, the rest of Waikato, and further down even into the northwest corner of the South Island. So the low is very large, but it is trapped by high pressure. That means it's going to fall apart over the days ahead. So this is how we look this evening. We've got this line of heavy rain. So this is where a lot of those thunderstorms are, really from Taranaki out to sea, but it could brush the upper South Island. And we're also possibly going to be seeing thunderstorms coming in around the top of the North Island. Pale blue here indicates not a huge amount of rain for some areas, 10, 20 millimetres type of thing. But if you get one of those big heavy downpours, that could certainly break that. And they are possible right across the North Island. We've got frosts on the way over the next couple of days. Here is how we look tomorrow morning in the purple zone. Those are the most widespread frosts. And you can sort of see it stays in the same area, but it does shrink or break up a little bit as we go through into Thursday. A lot of that cold air is stuck around the lower South Island, and it should be there for at least another week, not getting that warmer airflow that the top of the country is getting. So let's get into the thunderstorm risks. We just talked about that. So here we are this evening. Areas in red have that potential for possibly severe thunderstorms, but as you can see, a lot of parts of the North Island don't have that same risk, but certainly there is a risk of thunderstorms coming through. They won't necessarily line up with exactly how this looks, because some of them will yet to sort of form and bubble up, but that is the main risk zone, sort of the western and northern parts of the North Island, and to some degree a little bit into the northwest corner. A lot of these areas with yellow may just actually have downpours, no thunder and lightning associated with it. So you've still got instability. Here is the main front, and then those isolated downpours out at sea. So as we go to noon Wednesday, you've got that main rain band clearing away to the east, northwesterly winds for much of the North Island, so it's certainly milder around the North Island. Coldest weather once again in the very south here with light winds, mostly dry skies. Rain and downpours all the way up to about Auckland, maybe even still affecting some parts of Northland. And yes, there is the risk of a few thunderstorms in there, as well as this large low pressure zone drifts closer towards us. So that brings us to tomorrow evening. And again, the yellow doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have thunder. It just means it's possible. And quite often, building up to a thunderstorm, you get the big downpour. So there may be just sort of isolated hit and miss downpours going through Wednesday evening, as the low itself in the Tasman drifts closer to land. And by the time we get to Thursday, the low is weakening even further here, just off the coast of the South Island. Once again, westerlies blowing through the North Island, plenty of showers coming in from the Tasman Sea as that low moves in and starts to unravel. But there could be some more thunderstorms here and there around the western sides of New Zealand. Mostly dry in the east here, but there could also be a little bit of showery activity coming in with this nor'easter. Won't be very warm for you. And further up around the North Island, also a little bit of spillover into the east, but not very much. Not unless you get one of those thunderstorms that comes right over the ranges. And again here at 3 o'clock Thursday, once more, just a risk of downpours here and there around the North Island coming in off the Tasman Sea. Less likely for the South Island, but still possible. To noon Friday, the low weakening even more now. It's over 1,000 hectopascals. So it's kind of cannibalizing itself, surrounded by massive areas of high pressure, which sort of keeps that system from getting any bigger, getting any stronger. So it's falling apart, but that doesn't mean we're done with the heavy showers. More of those coming through on Wednesday. Again, hit and miss, whether you get a heavy downpour or not, and maybe a thunderstorm as that all comes on through. Colder weather now also coming into the South Island. A little bit of wet weather into the east. That is a cold southeasterly once more. Keep an eye on those snow levels. They may start to lower a little bit as we go through to Friday. And our final thunderstorm map here on Friday, again, bottom of the scale on the thunderstorm risk, but still possible. And so once more, the main takeaway from this is probably the fact that you could get some downpours. Not necessarily with thunder, but that instability from that low that's falling apart brings in the last gasp of those showers and potential thunder as we go through Friday afternoon. So by the time we get to Saturday, the low is pretty much gone. Someone said to me on YouTube yesterday, why don't you use the word trough? Trough is what we call a low that's kind of like these ones where it's just starting to form. I always say they're like a pothole in the sky. Fills up with a little bit of water, but not necessarily anything too major going on. But again, there could be some isolated heavy downpours with that system. Colder airflows now moving up into the eastern side of the North Island, so temperatures will go down a bit as we go into the weekend. But here is the next high coming out of Australia. So by Sunday, the high gets closer. We've still got that trough. A couple of them here off the western side, a couple up the north here as well. Once more, that's not a proper low that's spinning. It's sort of trying to get going, but it's surrounded by so much high air pressure, it doesn't really have a good chance of doing that. Coldest airflow from the lower North Island southwards. That is still the polar airflow in that zone, so temperatures are still down. The top of the North Island, it's a bit of an easterly for some of you. That's not usually a very warm wind direction at this time of the year. And our final map for Monday of next week, high pressure to the west and to the east of the South Island. The blue line, I know it can be a little hard to see when I don't highlight it, but that is right here over the lower North Island. So that therefore colder weather really from about Gisborne southwards as we go into Monday of next week. Still got a few showers stuck around the top. Coromandel Peninsula, Auckland, Northland area could still see a heavy downpour as that system continues to fall apart. But there's more high pressure out of Australia on the way. So next week looks as though it will begin with high pressure expanding around the country. That's all from me. I'll see you again tomorrow, Wednesday, with our next New Zealand update.